From its founding, the mission of the school was to better society by developing leaders for the world of practical affairs.
To boost economic development in Virginia and the South after World War II, Colgate Darden, president of the University of Virginia, and Tipton Snavely, chairman of the economics department, wanted to establish a new business school at the university, exclusively for graduate students. They sought advice from other academics, including Stuart Shepard, assistant dean of New York University's Business School, and Charles Abbott, a chaired finance professor at Harvard. Later, Abbott was appointed the founding dean of Virginia's new business school, and often shared his thoughts with Shepard, who succeeded him.
He said, now the last thing, he was being very blunt with me, and he said, the last thing we want is a second type of school based on Harvard.
Although Abbott was highly respected and established at Harvard as the Converse Professor of Finance, he was drawn to the opportunity at Virginia through his meetings with business leaders and President Darden. The challenge of creating a school that would attract the best business students in the South and keep them in the South excited everyone. But before the school could open its doors, $1 million in private funds had to be raised to equal the state's contribution. The goal, however, was to reach $1.5 million.
The origin of what we called at the time, or they called at the time, sponsors organization was in the late 40s, 1940s. It came about, really started by the university through the Professor Snavely Committee, who recommended to the president that we have a graduate school of business administration.
The sponsor organization is very important to us, and this was a group of very outstanding businessmen in Virginia.
Dean Abbott referred to the sponsors as his instant alumni. They were people like alumni who would stand in and help the school in a number of different ways. President Colgate Darden of the university at the time, as I understand it, said he would not establish a school unless the business community of Virginia, at least, was behind it.
He and Mr. Snavely, professor of economics, stumped the state to start GSBA, and they worked real hard from one end of the state to the other, and it was just perfect.
And that led to some of the business leaders in the state being contacted, and they were very much in favor of it, and they organized themselves into a sponsors committee.
If we could bring together some very, very strong, obvious support of our program, then we could get this off the ground.
Colgate W. Darden, Jr., a native Virginian, served as a Virginia legislator, a U.S. congressman, and the governor of Virginia before becoming the president of the University of Virginia in 1947.
What we got from him was the entree to all of the people that we would want to be with. And with his background, that here we had an open door to anything that we wanted.
24 prominent Virginia businessmen formed the sponsoring committee to raise the required $1 million endowment. Members included Henry McWayne, president of the Lynchburg Foundry Company, as chairman, and J. Harvey Wilkinson, Jr., vice president of the State Planters Bank and Trust Company in Richmond.
I would argue the most important person was a fellow named Harvey Wilkinson. He knew everybody. He had a great personality, and he was an organizer and energetic kind of guy. And he stayed close to the business school for years, and was quick to twist the arms of friends and people and business people and other people to help the business school in any way they could.
The sponsoring committee, with persistent efforts, succeeded in raising over $1 million by December 1952. And with their full support, President Darden moved ahead to select the school's first dean, Charles Cortez Abbott of Harvard.
He was quite acceptable to the academic community because he was a chaired professor and one of the few at Harvard Business School.
And knowing Charlie, I knew that what he had in mind was at least borrow some of the glory of Harvard for Virginia.
He had hired all the faculty and admitted all the students. We had a quote, dean of admissions, John Forbes, but Charlie Abbott made the decision on the admission of all the first students. So he did everything, and everybody knew he did everything.
The new but unproven business school began attracting a small number of applicants. Some were not especially strong. Regardless, Abbott believed academic standards should be high. Some early classes had a 20% attrition.
Charlie explained that this was necessary if we were going to build our reputation. We could not let the weak students through and build a reputation as for turning out top quality people.
He owned the school, and it seemed like, in a way, and certainly had a lot of respect. He was the right person to be the first dean.
Even though he was laid back and would frequently lean back in his chair in his office with his dog in another chair and smoke his pipe or chew his tobacco and not say much, everybody knew that Charlie Abbott was in control.
Abbott, with his razor-sharp intellect and strong personality, gained respect and dedication from his faculty and staff.
He had in his office 3 chairs. He sat in one. His black Labrador, Hickory, sat in the other, and in the third, there was usually a copy of the Wall Street Journal. If he wanted you to stay, he said, please give me the copy of the Wall Street Journal.
There was a big leather chair in his office, and it was the Hickory chair. I mean, nobody else dared sit in it, and it was filthy dirty anyway.
One of my most vivid memories is the informality, the fact that his dog was occupying, I think, the chair I was supposed to be sitting in, and that he included the dog as a part of the life. There was a gentility and a civility and a warmth about Charlie Abbott.
Abbott thought students in a professional school should be exposed to many points of view, so he recruited a faculty of academics and business practitioners, most with a Harvard link, and a few with international experience. This new school, his to lead, would reflect the business world.
When Charlie spoke to you, he would refer to you by your title, and the conversation would go something like, the dean would like Professor Horniman to think about. And the response was, Professor Horniman would like the dean to understand he's thinking about. And even in faculty meetings, the conversation always went through the roles of dean and professor.
He really wasn't much concerned about process. He tended to make a lot of decisions himself, particularly ones having to do with hiring. On the other hand, he didn't spend a whole lot of time, at least it seemed to me, engaging himself in any of the aspects of actually the teaching program or the design.
He might consult with the faculty, but basically he hired people he wanted to, and he got rid of the people he wanted to. And now and again, he would hire somebody without telling anybody, just to sort of, he thought they were interesting, and Freddie Richardson, I think, was one of those, and show that he was dean. He also had a management style which he described as taking a box full of rabbits out into a field, opening it up and letting the faculty chase the rabbits, and he would then go back and run the school.
He'd pop up in a pretty day and call CAD, say this is a dean's holiday, and the faculty got real provoked. They had planned things and he just overrode them. And the students, of course, just loved it.
I held him in awe the whole time. I mean, he was to me, the epitome of what the top academician should be, what a dean should look like, and the way you should act.
Dean Abbott and his wife Louise lived in Pavilion 6 on the lawn with their 5 children and their dog Hickory. The Abbotts enjoyed entertaining students, their spouses, and the faculty. Every summer, the dean would take his family north to his dairy farm in Pomfret, Connecticut, and return in time for the fall semester. John Forbes, the first faculty member hired and the first secretary of the faculty, managed admissions and initiated the management communications course, which featured his famous word lists.
Well, it was more than a word list. It was a list of words and objects to identify. Well, when we got through, no student could answer any of my questions. You have no idea what a moral advantage this gave me.
They were such fun, and nobody ever got all of them.
Almond Coleman, who had taught at Washington and Lee and Harvard Business School, soon became legendary at Virginia for teaching accounting using the case method. Dean Abbott lured Lee Johnston, his former assistant at Harvard, away from the University of Kansas to teach finance and investment management.
Lee Johnston was known as the Bear, tough, rough, gruff.
Because Charlie didn't want to be looked at as a shadow Harvard or emulating Harvard, Charlie hired people from a lot of different persuasions to try to build something that would be a unique program, I think, was what was on his mind with the mix of people.
Everard Mead, a former Madison Avenue executive, joined the faculty with a bang. He shot off a yacht racing cannon on the school's opening day of classes.
Ev Mead was a refugee from Madison Avenue. We had a lot of people who were escaping from their previous lives.
4 more business practitioners joined the inaugural faculty. Maurice Davier, a former Johns Manville executive, taught production and industrial management and originated first-year field trips to Virginia plants and businesses. Abraham Zelemek, a New York consultant, taught first-year marketing and later electives in marketing, pricing policy, and price protection. George Maverick was persuaded to leave his retirement from Standard Oil to teach employee and interpersonal relations. And Forrest Hyde, a New York lawyer, agreed to retire to Charlottesville and teach business and tax law.
I had an offer from Caterpillar Tractor to come to Peoria, Illinois for an interview. The only problem being on a GI Bill and not being very affluent at the time, I did not have enough money to pay for the airfare. Now, they would, of course, reimburse my expenses once I returned, but I didn't have the advance money. And I happened to be in a session with Forrest Hyde. And I was telling Forrest, I said, well, I'm going to have to turn down this interview because I don't have any money. And he said, well, how much you need? And I said, well, I'm not sure. I need the airline tickets. Well, Forrest reached into his pocket and he pulled out the biggest wad of bills I'd ever seen in my life, peeled off 4 $100 bills, gave them to me and said, pay me when you get back. Now that's the kind of faculty assistance that no other institution could provide.
The school opened on September 16, 1955, with 38 students. They were all male, all white, all American, and all apprehensive. Most were Virginians and military veterans using the GI Bill. In-state tuition totaled $414, and out-of-state tuition was $714.
The MBA program, of course, it was new, it was very small. Dean Abbott wanted to keep it small until he could get the quality where he wanted the quality. And it stayed small for about 10 years.
66 candidates applied to the new school. Their GPAs and standard test scores, not strong. But they made up for their past academic performance with a rare camaraderie and an obsession to succeed.
The simple fact is that the students we had at the start were the best students we had because they had the courage to attempt an untried venture. They took a chance.
The standard that we set up as a first-year class of performance and dedication, it was 100% dedication to being successful and getting the school off right.
I found the faculty were, very, very interested in us. It was very in kind of an informal atmosphere and collegial, and we got together and immediately, I think, established a relationship.
Our students were so much more personable, more easy to
to work with. They got along together better than students at many other high-powered schools. Their test scores might not have been as high, but they were certainly as capable.
I was prepared to be overwhelmed, not having had any graduate work before, and I was. It was truly an overwhelming experience.
The first-year schedule was lockstep from 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. 3 classes a day, 3 different cases to study, each class an hour and a half long. On Saturday, students attended classes until noon, or took 4-hour exams, or feverishly finished papers by the 5 p.m. deadline. It was rigorous and unrelenting, but it was as Abbott envisioned. It mirrored the real world. The new school's facilities in Monroe Hall included 1 standard classroom, a library, 1 study group room, and offices for faculty and staff.
Monroe Hall was unique to me because we only had 80 in a class when I came. And there was a very, very close connection between the faculty and the students. In fact, most weekends there was a common party with students and faculty went together. So we were together all the time.
It was, I guess, the classrooms themselves were crude compared to what we have now. The slate boards didn't work very well. You had to have roll-up slate boards, a lot of glass, a lot of room, very informal, old-fashioned place, and yet I loved it.
Little historical tidbit, Monroe Hall was infested with red ants. So everything, all your papers always had red ants all over it, especially in the warm weather.
During the first year in Monroe Hall, students sat in the one and only classroom every day on Bank of England swivel chairs, so students could at least turn to address their classmates. By the next year, the first tiered classroom was built to allow faculty and students to participate even more easily in face-to-face discussions.
The classrooms, I guess, even the first one had to have some adjustments made to it to make it tiered, because with the case method we didn't do it in the normal typical classroom.
The library held less than 300 books and also served as the morning coffee room. No space was large.
Monroe Hall was more intimate than the North Grounds. There was 1 staircase, and everybody came up and down and in the halls, and there was lots of interaction.
We were just jammed in cheek by jowl. There was no, you interacted with students whether you wanted to or not. In fact, the story was that Charlie Abbott had a little bathroom put into a closet outside his office, because when he would try to go down the 2 flights of stairs to the restroom in the basement, people knew he was on his way, and they would lie in wait on the stairwell trying to catch him to get his ear on something without an appointment.
First coffee is a time in between the first and second period classes where students, faculty, staff come together in a central location and enjoy each other's company. Sometimes we'll have featured presentations, we'll have musicians who are coming, we have announcements that are made, and it's really just a 30-minute break in the morning where people can come to enjoy each other's company and have a good time, drink some coffee, tea, hot chocolate, and take a break in between what will later become a very hectic day.
One of the dean's innovations was to have a coffee break. And the word was out, all faculty must be there and mingle with the students. So that enhanced our relaxed, we could meet and see the faculty every day.
And we had a coffee lady. And the coffee lady came in at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and prepared the coffee in these small coffee urns and got the sugar and coffee creamers ready to go. The coffee lady was one of those institutional powerhouses that you didn't mess around with. The other thing you didn't mess around with in those early days was with Dean Abbott. One day I went down to the coffee time at 9:25 and I didn't wear my jacket. And he came over to me after about what seemed like just a few minutes of looking at me and said, "Professor Landell, I assume you spilled something on your jacket so that you didn't wear it down here. Would you like to go back and get it and see if it's clean? The point being, there was sometimes a very specific set of behaviors that you exhibited here at the school.
Well, a lot of productive things went on when everybody comes to coffee, because I could rely on the fact that the student would be there and I could go and find them there.
The coffee scene became noisier and livelier in the larger space provided in the North Grounds building, the school's second home.
We had this square, modern building that had one wonderful design feature. The coffee area was smack between faculty offices and the classrooms. So you couldn't get back to your office without going through coffee. I think this was a great architectural design.
The PepsiCo Forum is now the gathering place for coffee.
I go to First Coffee because it gives me an opportunity to see students on a more informal basis. You see them in the classroom once or twice or 3 times a week, but that setting is a bit more formal and scripted. And I enjoy getting to know the students, and one of the best places to do that is when everyone is relaxed. People feel free to come up and ask any of the faculty questions that may or may not have anything to do with school or work. And it's just a good opportunity to get to know students and even some of your colleagues in a more comfortable setting, if you will.
Darden faculty receive superior ratings from both MBA and executive education students. Their evaluations of the quality of teaching contribute to the school's high rankings by business publications like Business Week and the Financial Times.
This is the first graduate school in the business school in the South. And it seemed to me that there was a determination on the part of the faculty, and I know there was on my part, to do our bit in making this outstanding. In effect, we thought that a lot of businessmen had been responsible for starting this school, and we had a duty to make this not only fly, but to make it great.
A lot of the early faculty, of course, came from Harvard because that was where the case method faculty were trained. They went to Harvard, they went from here, Dartmouth, Stanford, and other schools interested in the case method. The one thing I think that was quite striking here was that the people that came from Harvard did not want classrooms that held more than 65 people. And so when the Nameless Hall was designed, the classrooms only hold 65 because they had the feeling that if they held more than 65, the dean would fill them up, as they had observed at Harvard.
When a young faculty member came to the Darden School, you invariably had an opportunity to sit down with Pete Borden. Pete Borden was the all-powerful chair of the first-year committee, and you learned a lot about teaching from Pete Borden, not because he was observing you teach or not because he told you what to do, but just because he was interested.
I came in as a guy who had really bought into the case method and interactive pedagogy, you know. Before that, we just had everybody set out their own stuff, which was very kind of conventional academia. But I said, no, let's try it with an integrated program. And then I thought if everybody could see what everybody else was doing, we could move toward more integration.
One of my frustrations teaching at more traditional schools was it was like accounting was this end in of itself.
So if you're an accountant, sometimes that's all you care about. But if you're an accountant at Darden, that's probably not going to be the case. You're a business school person first and foremost, bringing to bear your discipline-based training.
Darden's general management program, strengthened by its integrated curriculum, fosters decision-making, strategic thinking, and entrepreneurial spirit.
The Darden School's strength is that it's faculty governed. The dean is not, at least in my mind, a CEO. A dean is at best a managing partner of a partnership, and that change, if it's to be effective, may be initiated by anyone, including the dean, but it needs to be understood and embraced and implemented by a faculty, which is really the enduring stakeholder in the institution.
From the beginning, there were no separate academic departments, a decision made to promote curriculum integration. Also, the school's small size created a strong sense of community.
The reasons for coming to Darden from Harvard, I think, are the same reasons why people go from big companies to little companies. That you have a sense of, I had a sense at Darden that I could over a career could have a feeling of contribution.
When I came to Darden, the people I interviewed with actually asked me about my family. They asked me what I did on weekends. They asked me about my life, not just my professional activities. And I thought that's a very pleasant change, that people care about the person as well as about their professional productivity.
My first experience with Darden graduation, one thing that struck me right away is that I didn't have to tell faculty to show up. They actually wanted to show up at graduation. Now, this may sound strange to any audience. You think faculty would show up at graduation? No. A lot of schools, faculty don't want to go to graduation. They want to get on to their other work, whether it's consulting or working on their next journal article. But it was just wonderful to know that Darden faculty were going to be there, and it was a true celebration of the achievements of the graduating class.
The faculty remained all white and all male until 1970, when Abbott hired Eleanor May, a marketing retail expert, who became the school's first tenured woman. Now the faculty is diverse in gender, race, ethnicity, and international experience.
Business is now banks.
The case method has been and is the core of the Darden experience.
Okay. We want to see finance experience on the resume. Is this fair? What Peter?
We got sales and distribution.
The case method is intertwined, in my view, with the success of Darden. You can't separate the two. To me, you can't talk about Darden without thinking about case method teaching.
Darden is a place that values practical research, working on problems that are relevant to managers right now.
What we try to do at Darden and in most business schools is to insert the MBA student into the shoes, into the dilemma, into the predicament of the professional. And that predicament almost always entails having to compute something, figure something out, decide something. And so great cases will have one of those tasks.
A good case is one that presents a real dilemma in the beginning, and where you've got lots of options, and where it's not clear what the right thing to do is. It's probably clear where there's some things that are bad. Those become obvious. But then it's not clear what is the least worst or the best decision. Those are the best cases, of course.
The skills that one gets through the case study method are immediately transferable the day that you go into work, the day that you go into business. And you may not realize it while you're going through the case study method in the Darden School. When I was in the Darden School, I thought the case study was rigorous. Some days it was painful, it was demanding. But when I got into the business situation, you could see the immediate application.
The Darden School is the first-year program in many people's minds, and what we're so different as other schools, because other schools claim their second year is the special place.
There's nothing like being part of teaching in a first-year section where the students have just arrived. Enormous amount of enthusiasm. They're not exactly sure what to expect. They come from all parts of the world. They're settling in. They're eager. They're excited. And they're ready to learn.
It's where the loyalty is formed. It's where faculty make a big impression. It's where the work ethic is developed.
The first year really was a challenge because it's packed jam full. I mean, we have more hours of study, credit hours, than any school in the world in that first year.
All of us are trying to figure out how to pack 10 pounds, or what we believe is 10 pounds of content, into 5 pounds of class time.
Students prepare for their courses individually and in learning teams. They crunch the numbers and crack the case. In class, they must participate in the case discussion and always be ready for the dreaded cold call, when a professor begins the class by choosing one student to summarize and analyze the case.
Would you help me start today? What
Could you tell us sort of what your proposal is with Harris? I mean, do you think we should do this project, and if so, why?
I think we ought to do the project because
what you had to do was you had to read all of your cases, and then you had to make sure that your preparation was good enough in case the professor did open the class with you, that you certainly would not embarrass yourself and knew generally what the case was all about.
You are given a body of facts which you may or may not be familiar with. You never have enough information. You never have enough time.
But whether it was the actual time spent with the case or whether you got the key talking points from your study group, you absolutely did not show up to class without having a fairly good feel for the case in case you were called on as the first participant.
It's probably easier if you have diverse views in the audience. Certainly if you're doing a case study, you want people with different ideas about the case. If everybody thought the same, the class could be over in 10 minutes.
probably every professor at the Darden School has had this experience at one time or another, and this happened early in my time here. To go into a class, cold call someone who then did an absolutely wonderful job, and think the case discussion is bound to be over after about 20 minutes. So you're sitting there, you're fairly new at the school, and say, what do I do? Little do you realize that you always have enough to fill up the entire class.
If you're really good at it, you're just a cipher up in the front of the room, although the students do discern that there is some method to your madness. There has to be a method to your madness or they give up on it. But the students are the stars. That's the beauty of the case method. They're the ones that are having to work, to pull, to tug, to try to get the thing to make sense.
One great thing about the case method is you get exposed to every industry just about there possibly is during your 2 years in school. So you know a little bit about every industry and a little bit about a lot of different companies.
If you're going to be current in what you're teaching, and you're going to have current materials, and particularly here at Darden, current cases, you simply have to have access to organizations that are going to let you talk about the issues of the day and get in there and get those cases written quickly and hopefully get them through the legal department so you can start using them. Without our close ties to the business community, primarily through executive education, I just wouldn't be able to have the materials that I have. I wouldn't be able to understand the issues to present in class, and I wouldn't really be able to continue to learn and grow and develop.
You approach an organization, develop a relationship, you write a case on them. The next thing you know, the protagonist is coming to speak at the school. The next thing you know, they're a sponsor of the school. They'll hire our graduates and so on. They participate in research programs, and all of it feeds on itself. And it's all about being close to businesses.
What happens in the MBA classroom, lively case discussion, also happens in the executive education program.
When you teach executives, they keep you honest. There's no better group than executives who have been out 10, 15, 20 years to tell you very quickly when you're full of BS.
The classroom is so exciting. It's filled with a group of real business people with real business problems, looking for actionable solutions. And so in the field that I teach in, business strategy, there's hardly anything more exciting than to spend a day with real managers trying to help them move their businesses forward.
The Darden executive education experience is parallel in part to the MBA experience. When I came here, I was told that executive education is a vital part of the school.
TEP was started as the Basic Advanced Management Program, BAM. It was started as BAM several years before, and it was started as the real first effort and capstone effort of executive ed. Now, it was hard to run BAM with a straight face because basic advanced management didn't quite go, and Bob Fair kept saying, I can't be expected to go out and sell this kind of stuff with basic advanced management. And we changed the name to the executive program.
the trustees, the sponsors who endowed the school were primarily business people, and they wanted some immediate results from the graduate business school, not wait for years to get a graduate or 2 or 3. They wanted the school to try to educate some of their existing managers. And we were probably the only graduate business school in the country that was established with just those 2 objectives. And Charlie Abbott thought, at least he used to tell me, that he thought they were equal objectives. And in fact, if he had his way, he said he would have started executive education before he started the MBA program. So that's a tremendous advantage to have the senior leadership that's supportive of something like this, which in other schools was sort of a sidebar activity and wasn't too important to the academic mission of the school.
Recently, we are running about 130 programs a year. Most of those are programs that are held here at the Darden School. We do some programs off-site. We ran programs in 5 continents, and we had people everywhere. But we prefer to do them here. And today, custom programs are probably 60% of our business, whereas in 1991, we didn't have any.
This is a young professional school which is deeply embedded in the Jeffersonian tradition, which pervades the entire university. While only 19 years old, the school has already been ranked among the top 11 graduate schools of business within the country.
The evolution of deans and styles is an interesting study that closely tracks the evolution of the school.
Stuart Shepard, a born Welshman, was serving as the school's founding executive director of the Institute of Chartered Financial Analysts. When Abbott retired in 1972, Shepard was selected dean.
Stuart is just one of the most delightful people that you could ever work with. I never saw him when he wasn't cheerful, positive, and caring about individual people.
Everybody always talked about the enormous contrast in style between the two. Early on, usually implying that we had gone downhill by losing Abbott, and over time, as Stuart took the school to some new heights and moved the school along and developed the strategy, I think those stopped, and frankly, it was healthier for the school.
Stuart had his critics and Stuart had his supporters. What Stuart did very well was manage a growing faculty.
Shepard created 2 new positions to assist him: Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, Bill Sealer, and Associate Dean for Administration, Ray Smith.
Stuart really had the challenge of doubling the faculty, getting high-quality students to come in, getting the building built, and having a very smooth transition from Monroe Hall to the new facility.
We moved to the first North Grounds facility because the university wanted Monroe Hall for undergraduates, and they didn't shove us out, but Edgar Shannon came to a faculty meeting and was very persuasive that we needed to move.
And he said, you people are going to have to move, and you're going to have to move either with our blessing or without. But we cannot do the things we have to do without your facility, and you don't need to be where you are, that is in Monroe Hall, right in the middle of things. And he was right.
Nameless Hall is the building that we were in between the time we left Monroe Hall and the time we got to the Babylon on the Hill up here. The building never had a name. It was just known as the Darden School. This school, I mean, it seemed like we had so much space compared to what we did in Monroe Hall. And we did when we first moved in. There was lots and lots of space. The classrooms were just perfect. Some of the faculty, particularly Pete Boyden and Vandell, Bob Vandell, were heavily involved in planning, particularly Pete, in planning and working with the design of that building. So very, very high degree of emphasis on the classrooms.
Shepard knew the University of Virginia's Graduate School of Business Administration, or GSBA, would receive instant stature if it bore the name of Colgate Darden. But first, he had to ask for Darden's permission.
I said, if you were to associate with us in a very official way, then we could have this school named after you, and we would be greatly honored. And it would certainly help this school, which you know best of all, how young it is. And we just want to get it into some degree of maturity in the shortest possible time to get off the ground. So he said, and I had tapped him on the knee, and I said, Mr. Darden, if you could see your way clear to do this for us, then you will never regret it.
In 1974, the Colgate-Whitehead Darden Jr. School of Business Administration became the GSBA's official name.
We spent a lot of time with the politics of getting from Colgate W. Darden Jr. to Darden. And I remember the day that the Washington Post called and said, is there a problem between Mr. Colgate and Mr. Darden? And there's sort of a breakup because most people, including the Washington Post, would hyphenate the name. So little things, I think, but important things like getting a consensus around we're the Darden School.
And so the school became known as Darden.
I was fortunate to visit with Colgate on one occasion in particular where he reminisced about his relationship with the Darden School. I had an opportunity to bring him up to date on what was happening there and what our plans were for the future. And he was most enthusiastic about what had been accomplished at the school over a period of years and what was happening at the school at the time and what our plans were for the future. He was a marvelous individual and very gracious, and he just said, carry on and keep doing what you're doing.
Robert Haig, a DBA from Harvard, succeeded Shepard in 1980. Haig was a former research director at Wharton and president of a Xerox educational publishing subsidiary. The Darden School's commitment to business ethics stems from a 1966 gift from the Olson family, founders of the Chesapeake Corporation, who advocated integrity in public and private life.
There was a talk about ethics, but there was no ethics curriculum, either elective or required in the MBA program, nothing in the executive program, and really very little research in ethics. And it struck me, given our wonderful setting at the University of Virginia and the honor system, giving the centrality of values and integrity and the ability to think about harms and benefits and duties and responsibilities, that ethics ought to move to center stage.
We took really a huge step by saying ethics is as important as the other subjects, and we added an ethics course to the first year required curriculum.
I think one of the attractive features for faculty, and I would hope one of the attractive features for students in coming to the University of Virginia, is the University of Virginia's long-standing, over 150 years now, honor system.
The honor system is a university-wide student-led initiative. At the Darden School, we've been very successful in developing student leaders.
We don't proctor exams. Our exams are take-home exams. The students we assume they're men and women of honor, and we'll act that way. I think that's a big part of the culture at Darden.
I think as we're now into the 21st century and looking at what's going on in the world and in business, the importance of honor and integrity and standing for something and being at an institution that values that really has increased in importance.
Pat and Ed, along with Alec Horniman, Lou Rader, the group that had really been the early pioneers, I think have put Darden on the map for good. I mean, we are not just a school that has ethics in our MBA curriculum. We're a school that puts ethics at the center of our thinking about business and leadership.
John Rosenblum, former Harvard faculty member and Haig's Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, was appointed dean in 1983. He would head the school for more than a decade and lead it to major prominence.
John was really the person who was here when the idea for the new buildings got started, and that was an important part of what he did.
John Rosenblum likewise was faced with deciding he wanted a new building, new set of buildings. He was unhappy with the
the de facto entrance to Nameless Hall by the garbage disposal, garbage dump, and he didn't like the fact that the executives came across from the sponsors hall to the building and was right across the main driveway, and he hated to think of one of them being run down. So he tried a variety of things to see if he could get the existing facilities reconstructed. There were some very bizarre ideas, which the university architect didn't think much of. And it was finally decided that either the business or the law school had to move.
There was both the need for space, there was a sense of, if we're going to win at a top 10 game, back to PR, we've got to have a building that's exciting. We have to have a facility that's new and us, and that we can sort of show as an example of where we're going, because at that point we didn't want to grow the school. So how do you create a sense of excitement and momentum?
One day, while walking from Nameless Hall to the North Grounds Recreation Center, Rosenblum spotted the perfect building site, university land adjacent to Sponsors Hall, but earmarked then for playing fields.
We walked up there and it was wonderful. You could see it was high and could be flattened out, and I think it was 15 acres, and you could really have not room to build, but room to expand, and it was perfect. I was sitting down at breakfast in the basement of the Commonwealth Club with our greatest benefactor. I mean, not our greatest benefactor since Colgate Darden. I mean, our greatest benefactor, Bill Goodwin, and was giving my little vision to Bill, because he is on the trustees and he had lived through all these crises with us. I still have a hard time thinking he actually said, but he said, you know, I could do half of it. I could pay for half of it.
The Darden School struck an unprecedented deal with the university. Darden would fund the facilities with all private funds, not a cent of state money. Phase 1 got underway, with Phase 2 on the drawing boards.
What a magnificent addition to the Darden School it was, and how unable we as a faculty, in general, were able to appreciate what this building could do for Darden, for our spirits, and for many of the people who support Darden. I think John Rosenblum truly, I have to say, saw something that many of us were unwilling or unable to see, even when the pictures were spread out in front of us.
Construction began on Phase 2 of the new Darden grounds in spring 2000. It included a new dining facility, a 470-seat auditorium, another executive residence wing, a parking garage, and additional pavilions for classrooms and faculty offices.
Today, we are much more diverse than we were in 1980. 1980, we were all pretty much, you know, white and male, and if we weren't from the South, we were from the East Coast, you know. And now we're from all over the world. We have lots of people from different nationalities here, certainly many more women than we had at that time.
The first woman graduated in 1965. The first international student graduated in 1959. And the first African Americans in 1972. Rosenblum encouraged recruitment of more women, minorities, and internationals among both the student body and the faculty.
We made what I would consider a brick-by-brick change. We certainly addressed internationalization in terms of recruiting students, put a priority on that, whether it was Wally Camp in the early years of the admissions, or Rosburn, or finally John Megabo. There's a real sense that we ought to look carefully and try to build an international contingent.
More cases with diverse managers and international dimensions were included in the curriculum. Progress became evident. Students formed many new clubs to support the interests of women, minorities, and internationals by sponsoring career, cultural, and recreational events.
The students do have a voice. They do have a lot to contribute. They're not just customers. They're not customers really at all. They're part of the enterprise.
They got more demanding. Their attitudes change. They demand more of faculty. Some of that's very good. There were less yes sirs and no sirs, or Mr. this or Mr. that.
There's no question that we dressed much like I'm dressed right now to go to class. I mean, Loafers, khaki trousers, a blazer, and a shirt and tie were standard attire for classes.
That went out. Now, no socks, shorts, sloppy shirts, and the whole bit. Less formality. But we're in competition with a lot of very good schools for those students and for the companies who want to hire them.
With a price tag of $37 million, you would think the University of Virginia's new Darden School of Business would be something special. Well, it is.
Linda Winnie takes us on a tour.
With excitement and pride, the Darden community looked upon the opening of the new Darden grounds in 1996 as a catalyst for world prominence in business education.
Dean of the Architecture School, Harry Porter, who was supportive and encouraged us to do a design competition, and we had the most exciting architects competing for the engagement, giving us drawings and models for what I consider to be not very much money. Picking Bob Stern, getting Bob to work with the trustees, which I think probably shortened Bob's life because the trustees are not easy clients to work for, and then put all that together with this emerging vision of a campus for us, the Jeffersonian style.
The move to the new Darden grounds was an interesting one. There were a whole group of individuals who decided it would be absolutely fantastic that the students were leaving at the end of their fall exams and they were coming back in the spring to the new Darden grounds.
A day in January, we were all to appear in academic regalia and march up the hill to what is now Saunders Hall and the steps.
And it was sort of the end of a semester, the beginning of another one, so the end of one school, the beginning of another, so the symbolism was perfect.
Turned out that weekend we got 27 inches of snow, and so the parade got canceled, and much to the relief of many of us who weren't really keen to march around in January in our academic regalia. And it was set for the next weekend, and it proved there is nature. It snowed again.
And so with that blizzard, obviously we couldn't, do the procession and do all that. So the procession was delayed until later in the semester.
John Rosenblum resigned from the deanship in 1993. While the search was on for Darden's next leader, the university tapped Ray Smith, serving as Associate Dean for Executive Education, to be interim dean. Smith, a 1958 Darden graduate and a faculty member since 1961, would loyally fill this temporary position 2 more times.
Ray Smith is a pillar of our community. His service as interim dean, as we tried to carefully search for the next dean and to support the organization and the people in the organization during those somewhat uncertain and confusing times, was extraordinary.
He is very soft-spoken, but very direct, and he is very forthright and able to get a great deal done.
I don't think I ever met an alumnus that didn't know Ray, and I don't think I ever asked Ray about an alumnus that he didn't know.
With Smith as chair, the search committee selected Leo Higdon, a Wall Street executive with an MBA from Chicago and a stint in the Peace Corps, as Darden's 5th dean.
Higdon's job was quite clear. He was going to come in and he was going to be the voice of Darden to the external world.
He came with a mandate to change the look of the Darden School, in particular to make us much more diverse.
There was a perception that Darden was not a very global institution. Its percentage of international faculty were somewhat small. We had a relatively small population of international students, I'm going to say about 8 to 10%. And we didn't really have any relationships with institutions abroad. If we did, they were kind of loose kinds of affiliations rather than real strong, mutually supporting affiliations.
During Higdon's tenure, the percentage of international students increased from 10% to over 20%. He also led the school through a successful capital campaign and its transition to the new grounds.
Leo Higdon came from Wall Street, brought a sense of, get it done that we kind of desperately needed at a time.
I think coming from
industry and really not knowing a whole lot about academia allowed him to play dumb. He wasn't dumb in any way. He was very, very smart. He asked terrific questions. He was a very fast learner, and he was really excellent at motivating people to take on jobs and things that were beyond what they maybe thought they were capable of doing.
One of the things he was able to do with his investment banker mindset, I think, was to look around at what we were doing in a number of areas and say, you really need to beef up what we're doing over here. So for example, under his administration, we greatly expanded the investment we're making in technology with computing and networks and with all of the video capabilities that we have today.
In the classrooms, technology has taken over. There, students have the capability
Hardwired and electronically equipped, the new facilities met rapid advances in technology head-on.
While most business schools were looking at technologies to assist the faculty in creating and delivering classroom experiences, at Darden we use technologies to create a very high-powered set of student services.
We've created a whole suite of products which allow us to have registration, manage alumni, manage career services, and we actually market these products to the top business schools internationally.
When I first started at Darden, we were doing everything with paper and pencil. So when students registered for courses, or when we were recording grades, it literally was a spreadsheet. And I'm not talking about an Excel spreadsheet, I'm talking about a piece of paper that was a spreadsheet. We have now come from paper to pencil and are now in a web-based system, which is a real-time system where students go in and drop and add their own courses. They can do it 24/7.
Computers, they're all over the place. And I can recall in an earlier time when handheld calculators first came out, the faculty spent an enormous amount of time debating whether students could use calculators on an exam. And at first, they were not allowed to. Now every student has a laptop in class.
When I came to Darden in 1988, there was a lot of paper that floated around the building. There's a lot of paper now, but if you're not hooked into email, you do not know what's going on. So it's changed the way you communicate. It's changed the way we create curriculum materials. We now do a lot of media-based cases. We now are trying to do more in terms of finding ways to send these electronic multimedia cases out to different constituencies.
Darden Publishing, distributors of Darden research output, began selling and marketing multimedia cases online in 2003. Dean Higdon left to become president of Babson College in 1997. Ray Smith became interim dean again, and then Ted Snyder, former senior associate dean at the University of Michigan's B School, joined Darden as its 6th dean.
Ted embraced the faculty. He launched a number of major initiatives, more globalization. He was the person that was behind the research initiatives that we had here at the school. I think he changed our hiring. We went back to try and hire more senior people, more experienced teachers and researchers.
Frank Batten, chairman of Landmark Communications in Norfolk, formed a close relationship with the school during the Rosenblum, Higdon, and Snyder deanships. An original donor in funding entrepreneurial studies at Darden, Batten gave the school an additional $60 million to establish the Batten Institute.
I think he saw in the Darden School the potential to really do something spectacular, and that's what led to the December 10th, 1999 announcement of the $60 million gift.
Ladies and gentlemen, Frank Batten Sr. has challenged the Darden School with a gift to the Darden School of $60 million.
It was a terrific experience for me to work with Frank Batten Sr. on the gift. His story is an interesting one. He was a relatively young businessman, and he knew on a very personal level Colgate Darden. So Colgate Darden was in today's parlance a mentor towards Frank Batten Sr. And of course Frank's children are graduates of the Darden School. Now I will point out that he himself is not a graduate of the school. But that, I think, reflects simply the fact that when he decided to go to an MBA program, there was none in Virginia and none in the South.
The mission of the Batten Institute is very straightforward. In the letter Mr. Batten wrote, he asked us to use the funding to make Darden a preeminent thought leader and educator in the fields of entrepreneurship and corporate innovation.
Ted left to become dean at the University of Chicago, and again, C. Ray was acting dean. He has never wanted to be dean, and that's why, of course, he hasn't ever been permanent dean. This time, President Castine said he made C. Ray dean because he still had stationery and cards.
In the angst of that departure, the faculty were looking, I know the main grounds were looking for some stability and someone who would fit into or appear to fit into the Darden pattern, which had become a very enviable one.
Bob Harris, a former Associate Dean for Faculty and the Vice President and Chief Learning Officer of United Technologies, was tapped.
Having been through several outside deans, I was delighted that we finally turned inside to get Bob Harris.
When I became dean, one of the things I tried to decide on was whether I wanted to continue teaching. And I actually asked a lot of students, a lot of people, would you recommend I do it? And most of them said yes. Some of them said, I'm not sure if I want to be cold called by the dean. But I ultimately decided that I would teach.
Harris, after positioning the school for competition with its peers, would leave the dean's office in 2005 to return to teaching and research.
Bob Bruner, holder of the Distinguished Professor Chair in Business Administration with 23 years of service at Darden, was selected to succeed Harris as dean.
Darden has evolved from an unknown upstart at the University of Virginia to one of its preeminent schools.
I can't think of a more understanding parent than the university. I think we have been blessed with wonderful support from all over the university in many, many areas. And we probably get more support and help and encouragement and assistance than we really deserve.
The rest of the university looked at Darden as if it were probably as Mr. Darden's favorite child.
We were new and we were distinctive and we were something that the university was trying to build and put resources toward. And I think that sort of separated us from the rest of the university. Then when we moved to the North Grounds, it got worse. And since we moved to the North Grounds, and that was 1975, I think both the university and to some extent the school has made a real effort for us to try to get closer together.
Charlie Abbott had insisted on certain amounts of freedom to manage the place. And it just was very difficult for the rest of the university to realize the resources we were getting and not be jealous to some extent.
One of the simple things I used to remind people is that I'm not competing against the rest of the university. I'm competing against Wharton and Stanford and Harvard.
The university, in the sense of the Board of Visitors, has always been very supportive of Darden. And that support has been there when Darden has needed it. But it also understands that Darden has needed the freedom and flexibility to be able to chart its own course.
The tension we will always face is making sure that we look outward to compete with other business schools and do what we need to do to be competitive and maintain our heritage as part of UVA. And we sincerely hope that both UVA and Darden will prosper.
Darden, with the university's encouragement, achieved financial self-sufficiency from the state and university in 2003. However, it will always remain an integral part of the university. The Darden staff has always played an important role in the school's success.
The MBA program didn't change in size for the first 24 years I was here, but staff has grown a factor of 3 or 4 times, I think, since I was here.
I can't say enough how much I've enjoyed working with the staff, and that may be a surprising answer, but I think faculty is, generically, we tend to be loners, perhaps egotists, not me, of course. Not always collegial, not me, of course, but the staff has been a support and mainstay for me all these years.
I think that the staff is the underappreciated foundation of any institution. We like to think as a faculty and administration, they come for the cases, but we know they came for the cookies, they came for the food, they came for the quality of service.
From 38 students entering in 1955 to more than 300 students per class in 2005, growth brought change, but Darden's core values stayed constant.
The genuine caring that the faculty have for the lives of each of the students that come here, the passion that our faculty have about teaching. It's not that the faculty aren't individually interested in their own research, but what faculty talk about at lunch and what they talk about socially is they talk about their successes and failures in teaching. I think that the Darden faculty care very deeply about teaching in a way collectively that I've seen in few business schools in the world.
It really is the most student-centered school I've ever seen.
Darden has something special. Darden is a community. Darden is more than a place to work. It's a place to pursue a mission of elevating society through the work we do.
The faculty, for the most part, even today, does not have posted office hours. If the faculty is here, they're available.
It's hard to say what's been the same in all these years, and I really want to make this point, are two things. The quality of the students, with how hard they worked, and what loyal alumni they become. I just don't know how we've done that, but it's the most loyal group of alumni I've ever known. That hasn't changed. The commitment to hard work hasn't changed, and I would say that by their admission, those students would say they couldn't get into the school now. I couldn't get into the school now.
When I got here in 1967, the big event was Sponsors Day, in which the school had, from the very first year, asked the major sponsors of the school, the local business community who'd given the endowment and continued to support it, to come and sort of see what we were doing. And the year I got here, Charlie got up at the luncheon and said, "I've become aware we have alumni." He said, "We have 600 alumni and we're going to start an alumni association." Before that, there hadn't been any. And as I was reflecting at dinner with one of the reunioning classes a couple of years ago, I suddenly realized that Sponsors Day is gone. All of the people that helped found the school financially and support it have unfortunately died, or their companies have been taken over. And what's happened now is that the big event is the alumni weekend. And the major funding now comes from the alumni.
Darden's 7,500 alumni stay close to the school. Among the world's most loyal alumni, they interview prospective students, serve as career mentors and guest speakers, expand the Darden network, give generously, and return for school events.
Whenever I meet them, I am always just amazed at the intensity of their interest and devotion to the Darden School. They may have graduated 30 years ago, but when you meet them, they want to know every detail of what's happening to today's students in the classroom, on the job market, what faculty are up to. And I think that kind of level of interest is just extraordinary. They were here for 2 years, many, many years ago, and yet their bond to the school seems to be as strong as ever.
I think it's fascinating to be able to see the whole scope of history and talk to those people. And I remember on the school's 40th anniversary when Ev Mead shot off his cannon, which was reminiscent of the inaugural event at the school. So I think many of us feel a close personal link back to the founding of the school, even if we weren't here, because of the people we've been able to meet.
Starting as a school where Charlie Abbott, by the way, did not want us to be accredited. Starting as a school where Charlie didn't want to put up with that stuff, to a school who, under Stuart Shepard, became accredited, to a school who attained top rankings. This was a journey that many of us, when we came here, never envisioned.
The place is about intensity, it's about transformation, it's about hard work, it's about the highest dreams anybody can have, and it's support from the faculty, and it's quality teaching, and it all happens at a pace that I think challenges people but also excites people and prepares them.
What inspires me to stay here are the students. You know, we got the best students in the world. They work harder. They're more open to thinking about ethics and values, and they're just wonderful to be in the classroom with. I got the best job in the world. I couldn't imagine, quite honestly, I couldn't imagine a better one.
The Darden School, at first small and regional, has become internationally prominent. Its first 50 years tell a remarkable story of institution building, marked with change, innovation, and growth. Yet the school has remained true to its enduring values and original mission: to better society by developing leaders in the world of practical affairs.